You've probably walked past a millionaire today and had absolutely no idea. Picture this. There's a guy in your office building. You see him every single morning in the elevator. He's wearing a plain gray t-shirt, khaki pants, and a pair of New Balance sneakers that have clearly seen better days. He carries his lunch in a reusable bag from Trader Joe's, his phone is 2 models behind, and his car, a 2011 Honda Accord with a cracked side mirror and a bumper sticker from a state park he visited 6 years ago, is parked in the same spot every day, rain or shine. You've never said it out loud, but you've thought it. This guy must be one bad month away from asking HR for a paycheck advance. What you don't know is that he has $3.2 million sitting in index funds. His mortgage has been paid off for 4 years. His monthly expenses are covered entirely by the passive income his portfolio generates. He could walk into his manager's office tomorrow, hand over his badge, and never think about money again for the rest of his life. And he chose those sneakers on purpose. Here's the thing most people miss. The image of wealth that's been sold to us, the shiny watch, the leased luxury SUV, the dinner reservations at places with no prices on the menu. That image belongs almost entirely to people who are performing wealth, not building it. People who look rich and people who are actually rich are in most cases operating from completely different rulebooks. Research from the Millionaire Next Door, which examined the financial habits of thousands of real American millionaires, found that the overwhelming majority live in ordinary neighborhoods, drive modest vehicles, and are completely undetectable from the outside. The loudest signals we associate with financial success, the flashy car, the designer wardrobe, the visible luxury, are far more common among high earners who quietly spend most of what they make. My name is Dave, and I spend way too much time studying the actual behavioral patterns of people who've built real, lasting wealth. If you're someone who wants to understand what genuine financial success actually looks like, not the Instagram version, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this already sounds like something nobody told you in school. Today we're going to walk through 9 specific signs that someone has quietly built real wealth, the kind that doesn't need an audience, and here's why this matters for you directly. First, you'll start recognizing real wealth in the most unexpected places. Second, and this is the part that actually changes things, every single one of these signs is a behavior, a habit, a decision, which means every single one of them is available to you, starting right now, regardless of your current income. Let's get into it. Sign number 1. They are completely calm when money comes up in conversation. Pay close attention the next time you're around someone who has genuinely built wealth and the topic of money surfaces. There's no flinch, no performance, no sudden shift in energy. If a price comes up, they just say the number, that runs about $200. The same way they'd mention the weather. Flat, neutral, factual. For most people, money is emotionally loaded. It carries anxiety, status, shame, and a constant low-grade hum of comparison. Bring up a price and you'll see people either downplay their financial position to seem relatable or inflate it to seem impressive. The emotion is always there, right underneath the surface. But here's what happens when someone has genuinely built real wealth. Money stops being a source of stress or identity. It becomes information. How much does this cost relative to what it actually delivers? Does this purchase align with what I've already decided matters to me? The emotional weight disappears when the financial foundation underneath you is solid enough. The Millionaire Next Door study and its follow-up research consistently identified this trait among what the researchers called prodigious accumulators of wealth. These are people whose net worth is dramatically higher than their income level would typically predict. They discuss money the way an engineer discusses technical specs. Useful data, not a trophy, not a wound. There's also a quiet pattern worth noting. 3 things they almost never do. They don't volunteer their income, they don't mention what things cost, and they don't live in ways that require either hiding or showing off. The wealth exists quietly, completely indifferent to whether anyone else can see it. Think about that. Indifferent to whether anyone can see it. That's not humility for its own sake. That's what financial security actually feels like from the inside. Sign number 2. They drive a car that's already fully paid off. And it's probably not what you'd expect. The Rich Habits study tracked the daily behaviors of wealthy and non-wealthy Americans over 5 years. Here's what they found. 92% of self-made millionaires do not own luxury vehicles. 97% have never leased a car. And 55% buy used. Read that again. A brand new $55,000 car loses roughly 20% of its value the moment it leaves the dealership. By month 12, depreciation has typically reached 25 to 30%. So the person who drove that car off the lot 12 months ago now owns something worth around $38,500. And they've been making payments the entire time. The person who quietly purchased the 4-year-old version of that same car paid somewhere between $22,000 and $26,000. The steepest depreciation hit has already happened. The car still runs perfectly. The monthly payment, if there even is one, is a fraction of the cost. And in many cases, it was purchased outright with cash. Here's the kicker. That $600 per month in car payments, redirected into a low-cost index fund earning an average of 8% annually, grows to somewhere around $900,000 over 30 years. $900,000. The difference between those two choices isn't a small lifestyle preference, it's a retirement. The person in the paid-off Honda isn't unaware that a Mercedes exists. They've done the math. They know the Mercedes is the choice for looking wealthy. And they've decided the trade-off simply isn't worth it, not because they can't afford it, because they understand what it actually costs them. And I get it. There's real psychological pull to a new car. The smell, the features, the status signal it sends. That pull is real. But the math is also real. And people who build genuine wealth have learned to let the math win. Sign number 3. They spend money on things that work quietly in the background, not things anyone will ever see. This is one of the most reliable ways to distinguish real wealth from performed wealth. Ask yourself, where does this person actually spend their discretionary dollars? Someone performing wealth spends on visibility, a new vehicle every few years, a designer watch that says something without words, restaurants where the vibe matters as much as the food, vacations optimized for how they photograph. Someone building real wealth spends on infrastructure, a fee-only financial advisor who restructures their investment portfolio, an accountant who saves them more in taxes every year than their fee costs, comprehensive insurance that protects decades of accumulated assets from a single bad event, estate planning documents that ensure everything goes exactly where it's intended, high-quality tools in whatever domain genuinely matters to them. None of those things generate interesting content. All of them compound over time. The logic here is straightforward. Visible spending produces temporary satisfaction and a social signal that fades within weeks. Functional spending produces continuous results. A tax strategy that saves $8,000 a year saves it every year. Insurance that prevents a catastrophic loss protects everything that came before it. The boring infrastructure of a well-managed financial life generates returns that no flashy purchase ever will. Sound familiar? This is the underground river principle. Nothing visible on the surface. But deep underneath, the current never stops moving. Sign number 4. They are careful with small expenses and completely decisive with large, necessary ones. This one looks contradictory until you understand the reasoning behind both sides of it. You might watch someone with a 7-figure net worth spend 20 minutes comparing two $70 items online, reading reviews, checking return policies, calculating cost per use, and then watch that same person write a $22,000 check for a roof replacement without breaking stride. Here's why. For small purchases, the habit of careful research isn't about the dollar amount. It's about maintaining an accurate internal model of what things actually cost relative to what they deliver. That discipline prevents the slow accumulation of small expenses that each seem reasonable individually but become significant when they stack up month after month. The 20 minutes spent on a $70 decision isn't about the $70. It's about never paying for something that gives less than the best available value at that price point. For large necessary expenses, the calculation flips. When something genuinely needs to be addressed, structural repairs, a real medical issue, a legal matter with serious consequences, the cost of delay almost always exceeds the cost of the expense itself. Quietly wealthy people understand this math intuitively. Deferring a $14,000 roof repair to avoid the discomfort of writing that check often leads to $45,000 in water damage, mold remediation, and structural repairs within 2 years. The attempt to save money by waiting ends up costing 3 times more. Needs that have been confirmed as real are handled without drama and without delay. What you almost never see among truly wealthy people is the pattern that's everywhere else: impulsive spending on wants, avoidance of real needs because the number feels uncomfortable. That combination is extraordinarily expensive over a lifetime, and most people never do the math on it. Sign number 5. They wait before buying, and the waiting does most of the work for them. The entire modern retail environment is engineered to compress time. From desire to purchase in under 90 seconds, payment information stored, one-click checkout, items placed exactly where impulse will find them. The shorter the distance between wanting something and owning it, the more money changes hands. That system was not designed with your financial future in mind. Truly wealthy people have broken that chain, not through extraordinary willpower, but through a simple rule applied consistently until it becomes automatic. For purchases under a few $100s, a 24-hour pause. The item goes on a list, the decision gets made the next day. Research consistently shows that the majority of impulse purchase desires disappear within 24 hours if they're not acted on immediately. The thing that felt essential at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday often looks completely unnecessary Thursday morning when the emotional state that created it has passed. For purchases in the range of a few hundred to a few $1,000s, 7 days. Long enough for the initial excitement to normalize and for a clearer picture of actual value to emerge. For anything large enough to meaningfully affect the financial picture, 30 days. Not 30 days of agonizing, 30 days for the decision to settle while real life provides information about whether the desire is genuine or just situational. Alright, real talk? How long do you typically wait before making a significant purchase? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. Here's what 30 days actually filters out. Most desires, if given enough time, reveal themselves as either genuine priorities or temporary impulses. Real priorities survive the waiting period. Impulses evaporate and take the unnecessary expense with them. Compound interest, the actual engine behind most serious wealth, rewards exactly this same quality at scale. A dollar invested at 35, left completely alone, is worth roughly 4 times as much at 65 as a dollar invested at 55. 20 years of patience, 4 times the outcome. Wealth is not built by the people who move fastest. It is built by the people who are willing to consistently wait. Sign number 6. Their lifestyle does not expand when their income does. Think about income as water pressure in a pipe. Your fixed lifestyle costs are the pipe itself. For most Americans, every time the pressure increases, a raise, a bonus, a promotion, someone quietly widens the pipe to match it. A better apartment, a newer car. Restaurants that used to feel like a treat become a weekly routine. Within 6 to 12 months, the higher income flows through the expanded lifestyle and arrives at the end of the month with almost nothing left over. Sometimes less than before. Think about the last time you got a raise. Where did that money actually go? Here's where it gets really interesting. Ramsey Solutions conducted the largest study of American millionaires ever recorded, more than 10,000 individuals with a net worth above $1 million. What they found was consistent and for most people genuinely surprising. The majority of these millionaires describe themselves as careful with everyday spending. They use shopping lists, they compare prices, they drive Hondas and Toyotas. A meaningful percentage spends less on groceries each month than the average American household. These are not people who became wealthy and then maintained frugal habits out of nostalgia. These are people whose habits created the wealth in the first place, and who understand clearly enough that those same habits are exactly what maintains it, even when their income could easily support something more comfortable. The rule many apply to income increases is simple. When a raise or bonus arrives, a predetermined percentage, often 50% or more, automatically moves into investments before lifestyle has any chance to notice it. The lifestyle adjusts to what remains. Compound interest works on what was protected first. Sign number 7. They protect their time with the same intensity most people protect their money. At lower levels of wealth, time is abundant and money is scarce. People trade time to handle everything. At higher levels of wealth, the equation inverts. Money is no longer the limiting resource. Time is. Consider this. Someone with $3 million invested at a historical average return of 8% per year is generating roughly $240,000 annually from capital alone. At that level, every hour spent on tasks that could be delegated is an hour of extremely high-value attention being lost. Because for someone at that level of financial productivity, focused time often generates more value per hour than the cost of whatever task they're outsourcing. This is why truly wealthy people are willing to pay what looks, from the outside, like a lot for convenience. A direct flight that costs $350 more than the connecting option. A house cleaner who frees up 8 hours a month. Grocery delivery that reclaims 45 minutes twice a week. An assistant who handles scheduling. The question they're asking isn't, can I afford this? It's, what does this buy back, and is that worth more than the money? Now, you might be thinking, I don't have $3 million. This doesn't apply to me. Stick with me because this is actually the habit that helps people get there. Practicing an honest evaluation of your own time, understanding roughly what an hour of your focused attention is worth, and making decisions that reflect that, is something wealthy people develop before they become wealthy. It's part of how they get there. They stop asking what things cost and start asking what things buy back. Sign number 8. They do not panic when the market drops. During a significant market downturn, most people react the same way. The portfolio falls. The feeling of loss begins to feel permanent, even though markets have historically recovered after every single correction in American financial history. The panic sets in. They follow the crowd. They sell near the bottom, locking in temporary paper losses as permanent real losses, and then watch the recovery happen completely without them. Truly wealthy people do the opposite. They don't refresh their brokerage accounts every morning during volatile periods. When they do check, they don't make dramatic moves. Some actually buy more, recognizing that a market decline is by definition a discount on the same assets that were more expensive last month. The S&P 500 has survived Black Monday in 1987, the dot-com collapse that erased 78% of the Nasdaq, the 2008 financial crisis, the pandemic crash of 2020. In real time, every single one of those events came with convincing arguments that this time was genuinely different. In hindsight, every single one was a buying opportunity for anyone patient enough to hold or smart enough to add. Research from Goldman Sachs shows that missing just the 10 best days in the market since 2009 would reduce annual returns from roughly 17% down to about 12%. And those best days, here's the part nobody talks about, tend to occur during the most volatile periods. Exactly when fear is at its highest. Exactly when the urge to exit is strongest. The mindset of quietly wealthy people when their portfolio turns red is simple. They are not investing for this quarter. They are investing for the next 20 years. And here's what I'd encourage you to adopt heading into whatever volatility comes next. The market going down is not the story. How you respond to it is. Sign number 9. They stopped comparing themselves to anyone else, and they did it a long time ago. The moment you become aware that a neighbor, a coworker, or someone in your social feed has something you don't, a very old mechanism activates, and the entire consumer economy is built to exploit exactly that mechanism. Luxury brands charge 40 times the manufacturing cost for a logo because the logo signals something to someone else. Cars are marketed as reflections of professional achievement rather than transportation. Vacations are engineered to produce images as much as experiences. Keeping up with the Joneses isn't a character flaw. It's a psychological pressure system that was designed, deliberately and expensively, to move money out of your pocket. And it works on almost everyone. Here's what happens when it stops working. One study found that when a neighbor wins a large lottery prize, bankruptcy rates in surrounding households actually increase in the years that follow. The reason is that visible wealth from others creates spending pressure that most people don't consciously recognize. You don't feel like you're trying to keep up with anyone. You just have a vague sense that buying this thing now is normal. It fits your neighborhood. It fits your sense of where you are. And now we arrive at the punchline. Once you stop using other people as your financial reference point, you're no longer pulled by that pressure. You develop your own definition of a rich life. The specific things that genuinely matter to you, independent of what anyone around you is doing. Your neighbor's new car is just their new car. Interesting maybe, completely irrelevant to your decisions. Let's come back to the man in the elevator, the plain gray t-shirt, the beaten-up New Balance sneakers, the 2011 Accord with the cracked mirror. By now, you understand why he makes those choices. Not because he has to, because he has done the math, fully and honestly, and decided that the alternative isn't worth it. He talks about money as data, not as status or shame. He drives a paid-off car while colleagues finance vehicles that depreciate faster than they can pay them down. He writes checks to accountants, fee-only advisors, and index funds while the people around him chase things that look good in the short term and produce nothing in the long term. He researches the small decisions and handles the large necessary ones without flinching. He waits before buying what he wants, and the waiting filters out most of what he thought he wanted. His lifestyle didn't expand the last 3 times his income did. He protects his time with the same seriousness that others protect their possessions. He stayed steady through the last 2 market corrections while his peer group made panicked decisions they later regretted. And at some point years ago, he simply stopped caring how any of this looks to anyone else. These 9 habits aren't secrets that belong to a different category of person. They are decisions, available to anyone, at any income level, starting right now. The underground river doesn't need you to see it. It just needs you to build it. If this reframed how you think about what real wealth actually looks like, pass it along to someone who's still measuring success by what they can see,